plants in the audience. So I've been doing OT for about 20 years and seating for about 10. My main job is at an ALS muscular dystrophy clinic, which is also the Department of Neurology. So I have MS, Parkinson's, all the different things. And we see a lot of different kinds of patients with progressive disorders. And so I decided to do this, we decided to do this talk today because we do so many things that are while we're waiting for funding to go through or while we're waiting for something to happen because they need an immediate solution. So we decided to come up with this.
My name is Todd Dewey. I'm an ATP with New Motion in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been involved with the MDA clinic for 26 years now, 16 years as a provider. So a lot of experience of just kind of winging it to try to provide a solution as quick as possible. So we'll show you some of the things we've come up with today.
So we've got the objectives, the obligatory objectives, so that there'll be options to maximize functional wheelchair use, 3 ways to use wheelchair components in unique ways. And we've got a lot of pictures. We're having some trouble with the video, but some pictures that we'll be able to show you of some of the wacky and strange things that we've come up with and that other people that we know who have shared their pictures and videos with us have done. And then participants will identify 3 creative solutions that they could use with their own clients. And what we're actually hoping to do is to make this a little bit of a forum, an open forum, so that we'll share our ideas. But I'm hoping that what we share will say, oh, you know, I remember when I did that client, and here's this crazy, wacky thing that we did, and we'll share with each other. We also want to hear from you, and we're going to pass the mic around, run around, and see if we can get some great ideas to share. Because everybody has problems and things where the stuff on the shelf just is not cutting it and is not working. And we're hoping to talk a little bit more about getting a network of some sort created to share information. So whether that's going to be a Facebook page or a Pinterest site or something where those of us in the audience and other people that we tell about this will be able to load pictures of creative things that they've done, things that we don't care if someone else knows about, and we want to just share to give that kind of information. And then also to put a place where you could ask a question. I've got somebody who's got this kind of contracture with Duchenne, and they can't access this kind of switch, or they can't play their video games, or they can't drive their chair. What would you guys do about it? And to have kind of a network that we're hoping to get together. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But first, we're going to show some of our interesting and fun things. So this is my most favorite guy. He took his Q600, which had quite a bit of space underneath the seat, and he put drawers on his chair. And I don't know if you can tell, but he's got tape measures and tools of all sorts in his drawers, like he's going to go, repair his porch or something. I'm not sure, but he's also got bags on the front of his cushion that he basically sewed to the Rojo cushion cover. He's got a drink holder, he's got a Dynavox holder, he's got all kinds of stuff souped up on this chair. And this kind of creativity is what's really fun as an OT to be able to inspire in my clients. They're the ones that are coming to me because I've given them good ideas to come back to me with lots of other ideas that I can then pass on. So I thought junk in the trunk was kind of fun.
This is a client of mine I've known since he was in early intervention. His name's Houston. We'd been working with him quite a while and replacing his old chair. And between the time that we submitted the request for the new specs and got the approval, got the delivery set up for the home, he had some progression with his Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And upon delivering it, he was having trouble initiating the joystick easily. And the complicating part is he lives extremely rural, and he wants to drive over gravel. We considered, using a mini joystick, which we are in the process of trialing again. But at the time, we needed a solution that day, because here I am with a brand new wheelchair. And so what I was trying to do is create a lever that would give him an advantage for the push of the joystick, because he needed that in addition to adjusting the throw. And I searched around, couldn't find anything in my tool bag, went out in the car, was going through everything in the car, and I pulled out an old Bic pen, and I gutted it, and then the pen actually ended up being the extension to the joystick. And he actually has been using that for like a year and a half. He chooses to use it. He likes it that way.
Yep.
So
when it wears out, you just put another Bic pen on there. And a pretty cheap and easy solution. And not everybody can drive with something this tall, but that leverage worked perfectly for him, and was a great idea. A lot of the chairs are becoming sleeker and cleaner, and there's not great push handles and spots to hang things a lot of times. Or you have to potentially pay for ways to be able to hang things that bolt onto the backs of the chairs. So I love to give my clients ideas about various types of carabiners. And you'd be amazed how many people don't actually know what a carabiner is. But they come in all shapes and sizes. They come in basic carabiner or an S-hook kind of carabiner. And so they're hanging bags and ventilators and suction machines and all kinds of things off the backs of the chairs. I can't tell you the last time that I did a ventilator tray for somebody because we're just hanging the ventilators off the back of the chairs, and it really is working much nicer than having so much of the ventilator tray sticking out behind the chair that is something that can really run into something or do some damage. And a lot of our folks are going on, when they're using BiPAP, because of course I work with folks with ALS, so when they're using BiPAP, instead of using a standard BiPAP, we're actually using a machine that's a volume ventilator called a Trilogy, which is used as a BiPAP first, and then they can use the same machine to transition into a ventilator. And so it's a nice small little package, and the case even has two little openings, two little grommets that allow you to hang on a carabiner very, very nicely. And it works great. So the one on the left is actually made for a stroller. And then the big S-hooks, I think they got at Northern Tool or one of the big Harbor Freight or one of the big kind of tool companies that you can use.
This was one that one of our friends submitted to us. It was a patient that he had that had to have 24-hour feedings. So they were trying to keep the chair as narrow as possible. He was trying to come up with a way to clamp the tube feeding pump onto the back of the chair and keep it in line with the chair. So what he had to do is he used two clamps that would clamp onto the back cane push handles, and then he cut another piece of the back cane off of an old chair and clamped it into the second clamp, and it worked out well. They were able to keep it in there. The picture's not great, but the concept we thought was good to share. So if you're ever trying to utilize a clamp that is intended for the back cane of a manual chair or the push handle, this was a way to integrate it into the line of the chair.
Right. And it should be, I don't know if you can see this little tiny pointer, but it should be sticking about a foot out to the side of the chair, and this just allowed it to go in between the back canes. And so it really made a difference for this particular family. This little one has SMA type 1. He is not on a ventilator. He is 5 now, 6?
Yep.
And using 7.
Yeah.
And using just a BiPAP. But that's a lot of equipment.
Yeah, Jacob, we've known him for a long time. We met him when he was very small in early intervention. He used this stroller for the longest time, but at the point when we took these pictures, he came into clinic and he was getting too long, and he was scheduled for his posterior spinal fusion. So we knew he was going to get even longer within a matter of hours. So we had to come up with a solution that would provide the length and for him to be able to lay supine most of the time, because we didn't know how he was going to tolerate the surgery and whether he was going to be able to sit up afterwards or not. But that was the goal. So we had to come up with a solution for his position and the adjustability of his position, and then the greater complication was trying to come up with a solution for all of the items that they constantly have to carry around with them. That was more challenging than the position of himself.
So you've got suction, you've got BiPAP, you've got all the other...
They often take the vest with them because he gets the need to have his vibration before the cough assist. So you can go to the next slide.
Yep, he created this great tray that fits off the bottom. And then the stroller handles are up and over him, so there's even more places to carry. So in this photo, he's actually starting to completely outgrow this system. And so this is what we ended up doing for his new system.
This is we did a tilt and space chair with the recline, and we were able to elevate the seat pan and adjust the modular back so that it was a planar surface. And when it would come out of recline, it didn't like pinch his hips and put him in an unusual position. It actually worked quite well. You can see in the picture on the right there that he is now sitting up quite straight. The surgery was extremely successful, more so than any of us would have thought. He actually came out of surgery, we had him in the chair and set him upright, and he tolerates it fine for several hours at a time.
And you notice the interesting footrest option. The family actually worked with us to try to decide where to put all the stuff, and they wanted to try to minimize all the extra things hanging. And so we ended up putting it right under his feet, and it gives him a nice surface to rest his feet. He's in AFOs anyway, with shoes typically, and it really works nicely to be able. Now when he gets a little bit bigger, we're gonna have to play with that situation. Maybe we're gonna have to turn the ventilator on its side or something, I'm not sure, but to be able to, for now, it works quite well. They had to make longer push handles, stroller handles as well, to be able to move the chair, so mom didn't have to, she's a tall woman, so she didn't have to completely bend over when he was in full recline, because he does need that position when they're out and about at certain times. He also has a very unique head support option, and they've tried a number of different things because he basically has absolutely no head control, and this final option seemed to work pretty well. This is, we've got some videos of a few things. This is a custom armrest, and it lists the materials that they ended up using for this armrest, and it's a pretty cool deal. The videos are all playing sideways, so neither us nor the tech guys are really sure why that's happening. So I'm gonna play it. It'll be a little bit, you'll have to kind of tip your head to the side to be able to figure it out. But they basically took a door hinge and made a really cool armrest idea. There, the door that flips open, gets out of the way.
Flip it back, Jim. Flip it back forward. And then flip the arm down. Yeah, just down and then flip it back down. See? Because
This
otherwise,
is, I think, is a really great and extraordinarily simple option. To be able to get out of the way of the backrest. How many times have we gone to lift up the armrest and you've got a lateral in the way, you've got a backrest that's a little bit wider, and you cannot flip that armrest back, and the family says, but we have to have that armrest flip back. So this is just a really, really great idea by the folks in Jacksonville. Just with a common door hinge, they often will keep it closed with magnets. They ended up not doing that on this particular one, but just a simple little glue-on magnet really works nicely to be able to keep it in place. And then the materials were just, you could take potentially a basic off-the-shelf armrest and put the hinge on the back of it. There'd be no reason why you couldn't. If you needed an AEL or an Autobach or whatever kind of arm trough or to be able to do, because some of them we really have a hard time flipping back. This is just funny. We were searching the internet for interesting ideas and things to help ourselves along when we came across this, which is so funny. This is my spot. This, I think, is one of the most creative ideas that I had seen, and then we were down in the exhibit hall and realized that somebody has actually come up with it. It's a footrest pull. I have many, many, many patients who I give out dressing sticks, and then those of you who are not OTs, it's a long dowel rod with a hook on the end that I give out because they can't get the footrest up themselves. They either can't bend over, they're not strong enough to bend over, or they bend over and they fall over and they can't get back up, whatever it is. And so they basically took a piece of coated wire, attached it, screwed it onto the footplate, took a piece of conduit, which was gray, and they painted it black, ran the wire through the conduit, and ended up putting a D-ring on the top. And so when the footplate is down, the D-ring just sits on the top of the conduit and doesn't fall to the floor, doesn't get in the way, which of course is why you need the conduit. And when you pull, it pulls it right up. And then you're typically not driving the chair, or this person was not driving the chair with the footplate up, so it didn't matter if it hung a little bit at that particular point. And I think this is genius. I want to put this on all the chairs. For people who can't, of course, afford the foot raise, that raises up and goes to the floor and does all these magical things, this is a great option, and they probably spent about $3 at Home Depot trying to figure out how to do this particular thing. What was that?
He's asking how it was attached to the chair. This was submitted through an email to us, and it looks like it's just a clamp onto the side rail, the seat rail.
Actually, that's the one I sent him. So,
Excellent.
Right.
individual flexible amputee. So the first challenge was when we got to prosthetics, we had to be able to have him transfer safely. So parts, but it worked great. He was able to do everything. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so nice to hear how things are developed and right from the beginning.
That's kind of what we want to stimulate with this. We'd love to be able to get a platform to share those ideas ongoing.
Definitely. All right.
This is another one that was submitted to us by our friend Jeff up in Baltimore. It was, he just had a guy that had a unique deformity and needed to support the guy's lower extremity, and he's using a padded arm support. It looks like Comfort Company product.
And so he was in external rotation, abduction, was contracted in that position, wouldn't fit on a standard leg rest, didn't want a foot box, and wouldn't really fit in a foot box. And so they just mounted a very creative solution. And I suspect it's hard to tell from the picture, but I suspect they probably started with some of the hardware from the existing swing away leg rest and then attached on the arm trough onto that. You have to be a little bit creative with your clamping, but it was a nice option for this particular family. You okay? Yep. We've got it. Sure. All right, this lady has just a standard joystick, but she's not able to hit the on-off and the mode. And so she's using a couple microlight switches to be able to access on-off and mode. And so typically in my clinic, I don't even think about putting them vertically. I typically just put a little Velcro on the back and they lay flat. And so the person has to come up and over the switch a little bit to be able to hit it and get off of it, to be able to release the microlight. I really like the fact that it's vertical and she's on the joystick and she can just sort of go this way. And the release is much, much easier. Gravity is not a powerful force pushing down on her trying to release off that. And so I've used this design since then to just taken a piece of splinting material for those OTs that have scraps all over the place and made it in the shape of an L. Velcroed the bottom of the L down to the joystick, Velcroed the microlight switches vertically onto the top of the L, and they were able to use it really quite nicely. And so this is just a quick and easy solution. I've done the same thing for a young gentleman who used fiber optic switches. And what we were trying to do, I found some splinting material with the holes in it, which is actually just about the right size to fit a fiber optic through, and made it kind of an L shape, and he was able to move his fingers just enough to be able to break that connection, or to cover that connection. So there's a lot of options as far as scrap materials. A lot of OTs have a lot of junk in our offices, and that's how it should be, I think. One man's trash is another person's treasure, right? I've got foam, I got Velcro, I pull things out of the trash all the time to be able to use, and so don't throw anything away. This young man has SMA type 2, I believe, and he's using fiber optics. And I think fiber optics are really underutilized. And so we wanted to show this gentleman. He is a rock star with driving. You would never know that it's just a switch driving. He veers, he moves on the hall because he's got 3 sights. One is with his thumb on the left, and then one is with his index finger and his thumb on the right hand. And so he's sort of tied down to his armrest, and there are very specific spots to keep him to be able to drive no matter what the situation is and going over bumps and that kind of thing. He's been driving this way for, I don't know, 10 years,
yeah,
10 or 12 years probably at least. And he's kept those little tiny bits of motion. Except for that, he's very, very contracted. And so I think a lot of it is just figuring out where those fiber optics are going to go and be able to be creative with those kind of positioning things. And we've got another one that Todd's going to talk about.
This is a friend of mine, Ben. He's 38 years old with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. He switched to fiber optics driving 10 or 12 years ago, maybe more. When I initially went out to his house and was trialing it, we were trying to come up with a way, what we could mount it into, because he has a very particular position. Like most boys with DMD, their hands tend to lie in their lap, and that's the best place for them. So we tried to mimic that. We were just trying to find something that we could put the fiber optics in that his hands would fit to, because they were contracted. And the one thing that he could still do 12 years ago was play a little old Game Boy. So I asked his mom if he had an extra one, and they did. They actually had a drawer full of them that he had used over the years, and I gutted one and put the fiber optics in it. This came about because he had gone through a period of time where he was ill, not in the wheelchair, but in the bed a lot, and his hands got more contracted, and he couldn't open his hands far enough. So I'm at his house, and I'm trying to figure out what can I do now because of the Game Boy. I mean, it was pretty small. I'm thinking, what am I going to put these in that's smaller? And I actually went through my tool bag, and that is the container that the extra blades come in for your utility knife. And we were able to route it through there, and it works. He's still using that today. It's been a long time. It was just something. We had to come up with a solution that day. I didn't want to leave without giving him the ability to drive again because he had finally gotten better and was back in his chair. So
We were thinking you probably could have used a Tic Tac box, too,
Yeah.
you know, something like that. But with those boys and girls with Duchenne and SMA, where they get so contracted into those little tiny motions, this is just a really great option. Easy for the family to swing in and out of the way. It's just not a lot of stuff. It's not a big Gatlin mount. It's not a lot of stuff. They just throw it over the back of the chair, get them in and out, and off they go.
I think it's important if you go to somebody's house and you're trying to come up with a solution, try to ask them to show you what they do on most days and see if it helps stimulate a thought in your head of how you could apply what you're trying to do to that goal, to the goal you're trying to give them, to what they are already doing. So you're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. This I found on Pinterest as we were looking for ideas, and we were just down in the exhibit hall, and someone has created something like this. So this is basically just a piece of tubing so that the caregiver can walk beside the person in the manual wheelchair and not to the back of them. If you're going through the zoo or a museum or someplace like that, it's really difficult sometimes if someone has a hearing loss, if someone has a visual issue, if you're just trying to hold a conversation, to always be behind the person. And it's just nice to be able to walk to the side. So actually, I saw a manufacturer down there that has got one to the side, and then this particular family just created one out of some piping and tubing, and I thought it was a really great idea. Something cheap and easy. I think this one is attached to the armrest so that it can get out of the way a little bit more easily. You could certainly attach it to the frame as well. But these kinds of things I think are pretty useful.
This is a longtime client of ours, Chris, again, has Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. Chris graduated from high school and got lazy, and his parents weren't motivating him to do anything, and he ended up sitting on the couch for about 3 years, literally. He slept there, ate there, and his body started to take the shape of the place he was sitting. He one day woke up and decided he wanted to drive his power chair again. So he called me on my cell phone, and we went out and saw him and convinced his family to try to bring him into clinic. And the first thing we had to deal with was his body. He has never had the spinal fusion.
This is what he was sitting in before he started sitting on the couch.
So we knew we could tell he was, because we did have to put him in his old chair to kind of get an idea of how he's changed. And we set him in there, and he would bear so much weight on his left rib cage. So we knew we were going to have to mold his upper body. But he really needed to sit on his Roho because he still has skin breakdown today. So we conquered the whole seating and positioning part of it, got him comfortable. And then the more challenging part was his arms. His arms are extremely contracted, and his weaknesses he has very little movement at all. So every time we would hold his arms to try to analyze how much movement he would have, we were just propping him. And as I was holding them, I just thought, I wonder what we could use to hold his arms if it were like two hands. And I remember the Stealth product that for the elbow blocks. So we got a couple of those and trialed them and worked out well. And then the challenging part was trying to figure out how to get them to swing out of the way for transfers. And with some help with their customer service, we were able to come up with a combination of parts with the Stealth elbow supports. They have a figure 8 piece of hardware that you can actually put two of the swing away, or two mounts, like the lateral facial mounts, on one swing away. So we were able to do upper humerus and lower radial ulnar part of his arm and swing it away. His joystick, we're trying to be equally creative, had to be able to be right where his thumb would rest. And we used the adjustable flexible mounting hardware from ASL, and it works great. He still drives like this today. He was able to drive. His goal was to be able to drive down and see his horses and his donkey. And he was able to do that. And we had some video, but it's
Well,
not.
we can show it. It's sideways.
It's
You'll show your head
sideways,
again,
sorry.
but we'll.
But he hadn't driven his chair in 3 years. This is his first time driving it in 3 years, literally. I hadn't programmed it or anything. He just drove it as it was programmed before we made all these mods.
And I love this picture because he's got such a great smile. He's obviously comfortable. Everything is very well supported. And to be able to think about using those elbow blocks as a wrist support and an upper arm support is a pretty cool thing. And that they're on the same piece of hardware that swings completely out of the way together is also a really nice thing because the hardware is not so messy. So to show you some of the video, he basically lives way in the country. He and his dog were the only thing on the road. Let's see if we can, he starts with driving on his little bit of sidewalk outside his home. And again, it's sideways, but he hasn't driven in 3 years. He's controlling it quite nicely. I know, you have to turn your head, sorry. Yeah, everything's a little distorted, I apologize. We thought we had it all set, and not so much. And then this one, it's he and his dog just buzzing around out there. He's going quite a bit faster, still controlling it quite well. Maintaining control with those elbow blocks. No matter the bumpy terrain, no matter the speed, he's really controlling it quite well.
Yeah, that was a good day. He was very excited about that.
Off into the sunset. We wanted to talk a little bit about Gooseneck. You can buy Gooseneck on the internet all over the place. One of the companies, Lockline, actually has some things that are meant, that they have this whole AT section on their website, but there are a number of other websites that sell Gooseneck, and I think it's a totally underutilized product. And I wanted to show some of the things that we've come up with. We've got a couple drink holders here. This one in the middle is actually just as a clamp on it with a little twist clamp that attaches right to the frame of the wheelchair. We've got a couple, this one ran a camelback up through that, and so we were able to put the camelback right at the top, right at the position that they needed, and this one was just a straw, long straw that I put inside, and the straw is just a refrigerator tubing that you can get 25 yards for $2. And put that inside there as well. And what we found with the camelback is some people have trouble slurping, 3 feet worth of straw. And so the camelback keeps the liquid up at the top, which is a really nice option. This one on the bottom left was the same idea. I took, OTs in the room may know what a ball bearing straw is or a one-way valve straw. And basically for those of you who aren't OTs, it has a little ball bearing on the bottom. And so when the person slurps to the top, the liquid stays at the top, okay? So what I ended up doing was taking one of those straws and putting it on the end of that piece of refrigerator tubing and putting it inside the gooseneck. So that way I kind of created my own camelback for not very much money. In case the person, can't figure out the camelback or can't afford it or can't bite it with their teeth enough, they can still slurp with the straw and keep it up at the top. Another way that we used the gooseneck was this top left picture. We have a lot of people with ALS who have their primary trilogy by the bed, that sort of thing, and then they start progressing and they start needing it during the day as well. Our respiratory therapist is working with our pulmonologist and also the medical supply company to get a second trilogy for use as a mouthpiece ventilation. And so we attach it to the gooseneck, and so it swings in and out of the way just as however they need it. And it's right there. They don't have this big mask over their face, which is precluding nonverbal communication and verbal communication. They're on their BiPAP 24/7 sometimes. The mouthpiece ventilation just allows them to sort of lean over and get a nice sip or puff of air whenever they need it, get a little ventilatory support. And the gooseneck has allowed us to be able to do that. So just wanted to show some of those options. And it just moves so easily. It's easy to make it any length you want. You can attach different ways to attach it to the backrest. You can screw through it. Lockline has some mounting hardware kits, lots and lots of different options. And I've had some people that have used it for, you probably have seen some of the little camera holders that have the 3 legs that can wrap around things, and that's all gooseneck. Same kind of idea with an iPad holder, a phone holder, put things in whatever position that you need. Very useful tool.
Camelback is actually offering that now. we kind of invented it just to solve a problem for our MS patient, and
Yep.
now you Yeah.
They sell that retail.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a number of companies that are starting to do that, which is awesome. And you know, we don't need any money in the patents, right?
Yeah.
On that bed situation, we do
Uh-huh.
the same thing, but we actually just provide two different circuits. One for bedside, so they don't have to have two trilogies. They just actually take the trilogy from the bedside and on the back of the chair. They mount
We've
it.
done that too,
Yeah.
yep. And done, sorry, to go ahead and then to do the second.
Then we have a second circuit on the lock line, and then they just plug it into their vent port, and then you just
Yep. And so something you may not realize that ALS is a diagnosis that falls under the muscular dystrophy umbrella as well as the ALS Association umbrella. And there is $500 a year toward repairs and changes in upkeep. And so a lot of our folks were getting inverters for the chair, to run the ventilators off the chair batteries. And then they can use things like either the dual switching back and forth, they can use mouthpiece ventilation, they can run their BiPAP or their trilogy ventilator off the chair all the time. It just gives so much more freedom. And they tap that, it's a descending balance. So they just use it till the 500's gone. They get a new 500 on January 1st. So if you play it right and they haven't used their 500 in December, you need something that's, quite a bit of money. You can get pieces and parts and kind of make that work. This picture just cracked me up. The woman's standing on a lawnmower, being pulled by a power chair, and it's Laundry Friday. Just made me laugh. We wanted to talk a little bit about joystick options. I have done a lot of joystick options out of splinting material. Dice them, wrapping dice them around things, the nice sticky tacky material. This is actually one that has a whole website called Ergo Joysticks. They make them in all different colors and all different shapes and sizes, but it's just a nice option to be able to get a little better control. If you don't want to spend the money on an Ergo joystick, get out your splinting material, your splint pan, hook up with an OT, have them make one that fits that person's hand in particular, and attach it onto there. So I think there's many, many options, and sometimes we go with just what's commercially available, the dome and the mushroom and the goalpost, but sometimes they're too high, they're too low, they're not the right shape, the person's hand is contorted, they need something that's a little bit different, and I think having some options makes a lot of sense. We also put a few more joystick options on here.
Yeah, these are some that we've come up with. The little girl on the left has a incredibly strong startle reflex, so every time we were trialing the power chair with her and anybody would give her any direction, which everybody was trying to give her direction, she would push hard and the joystick knob would come off in her hand and she didn't have the ability to put it back on herself because she doesn't have that much control.
And then you probably tried double stick tape and dice them and all sorts of other things to keep it on there.
I had been in a habit of carrying different colored golf balls around in the car really more for aesthetics than for functional purpose, but that day it became quite obvious it was a great solution for it because the golf ball has a little rubber consistency in it, and after you drill the hole in the golf ball and push it on there, it doesn't come off easily. You feel like you're going to rip the guts out of the joystick trying to take it off, so it was a good solution for her. The next one is a friend of ours that we see. He's very creative. We have other pictures of him. His mom is extremely creative. She created the Batman joystick knob out of a drawer pull and just had it injected with some silicone and actually has a set screw on it.
And we've had clients that have created, you see the doorknob, you see the basketball, but we've had people that have taken those things, little balls that fit on the top of antennas. That's actually just about the right size hole to fit in most of the joysticks. Or we can drill a hole. Golf balls work awesome because they have a little bit of texture and they're just a nice size and they're very low profile. So you don't have that hand kind of up in the air. We had somebody who was kind of a rock and roll kind of person who took a skull that they found at, Spencer Gifts or something and drilled a hole up through the bottom of it and put it on there. Really, almost anything that you can create. And I think it just helps to personalize as well as give functional options. This guy was amazingly creative. So he has, I think he had a brain injury, I believe. And he's got severe knee contractures. And so he has to have a rear-wheel drive chair with a foot platform tucked so far underneath his chair that he would slide out of the chair all the time. Hip belts didn't work, lots of different things, and so he decided he was going to come up with an option. And so these are the knee pads that people who do tile and that sorts of work on their knees use. And so they attach them onto just a chest belt. And the chest belt is attached onto the side rail of the chair with just a D-ring. He can get it on and off himself. It just usually he tilts back, so he's got good stability, and he's all the way back in the chair, puts on his chest belt, knee pad thing, and then he's good to go. He's got padded support, and it works great for him. And actually, I saw there's a vendor downstairs that has a padded belt right across the knees. So everybody's taking our ideas, I tell you what. And here's our Batman.
There's our Batman. He's the kid that's in Quest magazine and on Quantum's website right now.
Halloween. We wanted to say that a lot of the technology things that a lot of us are having to do, hopefully, is to get people quality of life, get them out of the house, get them some fresh air and some sunshine, and to do what they need to do. This little girl has a number of different pieces of equipment, but the family takes her in the ventilator to the beach, they get in the water, they do everything that a kid should be able to do. And I really wanted, so we stuck this in just to encourage you, to encourage your folks to figure out a way to be outside, get in nature, to do things that normal people do that don't have severe disabilities, and to be able to make that work. I think people are so afraid of the ventilator getting a little sand in it. It'll be okay.
Yeah, this is Olivia. She's very cute. This is a photo that was submitted by an ATP that shows a solution he came up with. He had a patient that had a one-arm drive, but the one-arm drive, he couldn't be very functional with it for long distances because as anybody knows, it would be very difficult to push, especially here, with a one-arm drive. So he created a bracket for a one-arm drive chair and hooked the smart drive to it.
I was able to completely give that person a lot more control and a lot more distance.
This is a client of mine. Karen had FSH MD, and one of the most stubborn people I ever worked with.
Yes.
She refused to get out of a scooter. And she was in a scooter way too long, but she relied on the tiller to hold her up because her posture was horrible. And she finally got to a point where she had no choice. If she was going to be mobile, she was going to have to go into a power chair with tilt. So we got her in one. We could not find a way to control her posture. She was very thick and
severe lordosis.
Oh, her lordosis was incredible. And one day I just asked Amber if I could have a couple of abdominal binders and went out to her house, and we just wrapped an abdominal binder around her and the back of the wheelchair. And she was able to drive down, get her mail. She was able to go down the driveway. It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And everybody, I think, you may not realize or not, but the abdominal binders have seams that you can cut to make them vertically shorter or taller. So they're really a nice option, both for keeping peg tubes organized so that they're not hanging down in your jeans and when you're going to the bathroom and all that other stuff. They can be used, obviously, to hold people in the chair. With so many reasons, and just ended up being a good solution. It's not I wish they came in something other than white, but I suppose you could dye it or do tie-dye on it or something and make it a cool-looking thing.
And the extra seat belt was to keep her knees in. That's how she wanted it.
Yeah, some of these we need to have a disclaimer. We promise we did not do this to her.
She needed that because she lived in a really old home, and the doorway were barely wide enough for her to get through, and her posture was so bad, her knees would abduct so much, so she put those on there. And then when she'd get through the doorway and get outside, she'd take it off and drive. So it worked. This is a client of mine in a group home setting. We have, for years, struggled to come up with ways to control the upper extremities when they get excited. So we kind of used a bunch of different lateral and hip pads and hardware on the old trays. And one day I just decided I would try something new and ordered a couple of single leg foot boxes and drilled straight through the upholstered tray and bolted it on and put the upholstery back on the foot box. And we've been using this now. This is new. We just did this maybe a month or two ago, and the group home loves it. So it was a simple solution. I didn't have to create really anything. It was just putting two pieces together that wouldn't normally be used together.
And when you can see the middle picture, it's just so sweet and so much joy. But when those arms would get back so far, her arms would get caught under the tray, or they'd rip up her arms on the armrest, and when they really get excited, and it gets messed. So this is working out well. We put this guy in just because I have never seen a chair like this one. It's got to be pushing 30 years old. The family pushes, the actual drive and the joystick hasn't worked for probably 20 years. And they just push it around. So we have tried our hardest to put him in something more up to date. They won't go for it. He's comfortable, they're happy, so they push him in and out of the van, they push him in the clinic, he has no independent control, because I think part of it is that he uses a giant ventilator and it gives it a nice little shelf to sit in. They have created wooden pieces with their own pillows for the armrests, because the armrests have fallen off. This molded seat system is literally 30 years old.
This picture's not from that long ago. This is just like a couple months ago. It looks like a picture that someone's had for years, but it's not.
I think the headrest is maybe the newest thing. But, and sometimes you just got to do what you can do, and you have to be creative with the system because people have a difficult time changing. Well, a millimeter out of whack is a millimeter out of whack, and they won't tolerate it. And so a lot of our job is trying to get people to accept change and trying to make it as close to the old system as possible, and that's a challenging thing, that's for sure. This gentleman has ALS. He needed to be able to use his phone right in his lap, nice and close. So this gentleman used a Gatlin mount to be able to mount the phone, and then it just pulls on and off the Gatlin mount if they need to take it off his lap or to move it in a little bit different position depending on the time of day. And so it's just a really nice, cheap and easy option. Something we use is just loaner parts to be able to do that. We've also taken pieces of Velcro and made a leg strap and then a little Velcro on the back of the phone and strapped it to their thigh to be able to make that a little bit easier. We've strapped them to the armrest, to the gel arm troughs. We put them in all different places. And then, of course, there's lots of lovely mounts downstairs, but this was one option. Okay, we didn't do this, I promise. This is a gentleman who was really, really, really rough on his chairs. And he had some trouble with his casters. They broke. And so he took skateboard wheels and attached them to the footrest. We're amazingly creative, got him through. Basically it was going to be a little bit of a period of time until we could get his casters fixed or get him a new chair or whatever was going to happen. I don't even remember at this point. But he and his family took the skateboard wheels off of somebody's skateboard and drilled them right into the footplate.
We put this in here because I use these straps all the time. People become crazy. I carry around these straps. They're actually tie-down straps for the quantum power chairs, and we have an abundance of them. So I always carry a lot of stuff. The back of my car looks like Amber's office, because you never know what you're going to need. But they come in so handy. I would suggest anybody who's doing home health and going to the home to have something like this. Ask your local supplier for them. They probably have an abundance of them. But in this case, we just used them as a simple foot strap. They're no cost. I mean, it's nice to pass them on. I've used them in emergency situations. I had a client at the airport, and the airport destroyed the joystick mount and the armrest, and I didn't have the correct parts to fix it, but I had enough straps that I could strap it, and she could drive until I could get them. So.
We've used them to hold arms in place, and it's stronger than Velcro, but it's still quick and easy to get out, and it's obviously free. Well, the chair wasn't free, but it comes as part of the pallet that the quantum chairs get strapped down to. So this kind of stuff, again, don't ever throw anything away. So. It's just fun. I love creativity, feel the force, and I think some families are just awesome with their kids in Halloween and how they dress up the chairs and be able to do that.
This is just an alternative to the expensive light kits that are offered on power chairs. I don't know if everybody has a Harbor Freight in their area, but Harbor Freight coupons are popular in our area because when you get them, they always offer something for free with the purchase. So you can go in there and buy something for $1, and they still give you the item that's being featured. And this is one of them. It's a light. It works great, and it comes with a hook. So if you go twice or take two people, you can get one for each side.
So this person just hooked it on the swing away joystick mount, but you could hook them anywhere and put them all over the chair if you wanted to, but obviously cheap and easy. I've also strapped flashlights, I've Velcroed flashlights There's bike lights that you can get at the bike stores. There's lots and lots of options for lights to be able to put on, but this is obviously the cheapest that we could come up with, I think.
This is a crazy rig that we came up with, and I serve a large group home population, and they have a problem with some of the kids rocking, and then the other problem is the people that work there trying to lock their chairs down once they get them in their van. So the standard wheel lock is out of reach for them, and they also needed it to be more durable. So what we did is I just ordered an extra wheel lock and extra hardware, and we were able to mount the wheel lock backwards on the chair, and so there's 2 per chair, per side.
This helps everybody out a little bit. This is just random and scary.
This is one of my clients. Don't get too close to the school bus. It was a close call. The school bus backed up, and she was behind it. So,
Yeah, very scary.
no questions asked. They ordered another chair like that day. Yeah.
This gentleman is 40 years old with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. He does have a ventilator, but he hides it quite well under his clothing. I can see the little ridge outline of the ventilator tubing in there. But he has very funky feet, as a lot of men with Duchenne do. Can't use anything close to a standard footrest or standard calf pad. He also likes his legs crossed in kind of a strange way. And so we were looking for something a little more comfortable. And so we used the headrest pads as calf pads, or sort of calf pad footrest, side of foot holder kind of things, because they'll elevate with his elevating leg rest, and they just put him in a nice position. They're very, very plush and comfortable, and they were just the right size. He also, for probably 20 years, has held this pencil in his hand to be able to hit on-off in mode, because he didn't like the little switches that we put on and wanted to be able to still do it. So if they can use it, that pencil eraser is a nice option for reaching up to that on-off button. A lot of the joysticks are changing for some of the folks with Duchenne that have been using their chairs for years and years, where the place to rest your hand is gone, where you're holding on the joystick has moved back, and the controls for on-off and mode have moved forward. And so that has sometimes been a tricky change for some folks, and the pencil's a nice idea. This family, the gentleman had a type of ALS that affected his arms first. He could not move 1 iota of his arms, not much in his trunk. But we took wireless switches and we attached them to a little mount that was created to slide onto his footrest, so he could use his toes for his switches. He did not use them to drive, he used them for the computer and his communication device. But it really, really works nicely. And that was also a collaboration between our speech therapist, who's an assistive technologist, and his family, who created the welding and the mount, and then to be able to get all that put together. We did not do this one. This is a hammer handle, which is attached with a pipe clamp. Is that what we
It looks
call
like
it?
a pipe clamp.
We think a pipe clamp, and then one of those standard kind of drink holders that can attach to hospital beds and other places. And it worked perfectly for them. It slid right over. You could drink out of a small straw, slid right over, and got out of the way. So families, if you can give them the tools and the resources and the ideas, they will step up to the plate. They're awesome.
This is a longtime client of ours, Sean. Sean's just graduated from high school, started college, but I think this is probably two or 3 years ago. Sean's always been interested in music and kind of getting a lot of attention from the girls. So his dad, will do anything for him. His dad is similar to the other gentleman. He has been in the Disney marathon several times, being pushed by his dad. But so his dad took him and had somebody adapt his chair with a surround sound system and a little under lighting.
So let's
I think
see.
we have a
It'll
video.
probably play sideways, but I just wanted to see if you can see the surround system.
Hi everyone, this is Sean Crosby. And
No, he's
we're
just
gonna
telling
talk
about it.
the
Basically, he
modifications
puts
that
his
we've made
phone
to
in his
Sean's
lap
chair.
and attaches his
There's
music
really two modifications that have
to
been
the
made.
chair. He's got
One
speakers
is
sort
we
of
put
put
a
all over the
sound
place. He's got
system
lights
on
that
his
pulse to
chair,
the time
and
of the
also
music
lighting
coming out
system
from under his
underneath
chair.
The chair, which is
It is a
sort of
sweet
like
setup.
similar to what you see on cars, where it's
Let's see if I
adjustable.
can- does this one actually show the
beats
lights?
to the music as well.
Let's see if
But
we
on
can
the
pop
chair,
it.
we have
you'll have to
the
turn it
Onyx
on
port
if
that
it's
comes in
not
for Sean. You can see that it goes to his phone. And then
Too
we
much.
also have the on and off switch.
Stop one of them.
We have a USB charging port that's been put in for his electronics. as we go around the chair, you can see one of the speakers mounted down here. The amplifier's on the back, and then the amplifier is a 750 watt system to run the speakers. And then we also have a 200 watt bazooka boombox that's mounted here as well. And then there's the other speaker. So if we turn the lights off, and we'll just keep right here, you can see that we have an electronic system to run the lights for Sean. It's underneath as well. So we'll just kind of walk around the chair and take a look at that. And the lights are adjustable, you know, with most of the car kits that you put on, they'll do that as well.
So he is a hit at MDA summer camp when he was going, that is for sure. They have a dance every week that they have summer camp, and he is the hit. And they basically took his chair to an auto parts store, a place that sells all the cool speakers and things for your car and a motorcycle and that kind of thing, and they souped up his chair for not very much money. And so if somebody's looking for a way to be sort of the cool kid on the block and put the music and the lights and the whole thing, it really works nicely. So this is a knee drive. I think, I'm sorry, was there a question?
She was at.
What was the question?
They tapped into the batteries.
Okay,
We didn't
we've done
do
that
that.
before too. And they were strong enough to power that whole thing with all the wattages you were saying?
Yeah, it doesn't take much power at all to drive that system.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
I got a guy I saw someone set him up. He was a 20-year-old kid with bad attitude, but he got ticketed for noise violation. He was so proud that he carried that ticket with him everywhere he goes.
Nice.
An officer wrote me
I don't know if everybody heard, but he said one of his guys got a ticket for a noise violation. He was playing his music on a stereo too loud. Excellent.
Yeah, it'll vibrate the clinic. He's played it at clinic before, and it gets everybody's attention.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it's so much fun. You know, it makes you unique.
The batteries of a wheelchair are more powerful than the batteries of a motorcycle. It drives that system fine.
Yeah. And a lot of our folks have their ventilator. They're charging their phone at the same time. They're running the chair. They're doing everything, and they still go all day. So, I mean, those batteries are huge. So this one is a knee drive. This is made by one of the manufacturers, Magitech, downstairs. But a lot of folks with ALS and Duchenne maintain the ability to do ab and adduction of their knees as one of the longest things that they maintain. And so this knee drive just has little proximity sensors on gooseneck arms on either side of his knees, and just allows him to be able to control the chair. He did try a foot drive. That was not for a while, and that only lasted about 6 months. His ALS is pretty progressive. He also doesn't have any use of his arms and very little use of his head. So we couldn't use a head ray, we couldn't use a standard Magitech, we couldn't use, doesn't have the breast support or the mouth support to be able to use a sip and puff. I mean, we're really very, very limited in options, and then we heard about this, and I'm sure the video is going to play sideways again, but we'll show you. He's describing how he does it.
3 running miles an hour. Now, I'm up to 0.6 miles an hour. And you see the trail of dust behind me. You see the woolly world on the ground racing me that I am leaving behind.
Very proud of his system, being able to drive and control it again. He is very dependent, did not want his wife to have to use the attendant control, and so we really searched long and hard.
How does it get into the seating functions?
Oh,
What's his mode select?
He's got forward, left and right on one leg, and forward on another leg, and then the other one is the switch to be able to go into the different modes and to be able to go in reverse and that kind of thing. So he doesn't have any other switches anywhere else. All right, so that's the end of what we're doing. What we want to do is, and I know we're going to have to run around with the mic and do our best. If you're going to talk without the mic, go ahead and stand up and shout pretty loud. But we know that you guys have been nodding your head and that you've got good ideas and that you've got things that are even cooler than these to share with us. So if someone's got a great idea that they'd love people to know about, go ahead and raise your hand, ask for the mic. There's someone back behind you.
Actually, when you were talking about the chair with all the music and such like that on it with the lights, 2 things came to my mind. One is you can get online. I have a client who's very hot-natured, and you can buy online these. They're called air conditioners, and they run a fan runs air through the back of the air of the seat, and we modify it and stick it in the back of the wheelchair, and then plug it up to the batteries of the power chair.
That's a great idea.
They also sell LED lights in strips, and we've done that too. Use the LED lights and use the power from the chair to switch it on. My technician, whose name is Larry Phillips, actually also will put on a flip-flop box so that the client can turn it on and off.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
What else? I know there's so many creative people out there.
When installing foot drives for patients with ALS, a lot of times when the client puts the elevating leg rest up or the elevating center mount up, the mushroom or the joystick will want to deflect because it's too heavy, and we've gone to using ping pong balls on top of the end of the joystick because it's light enough that the client can maneuver it with their toes or with their foot, but it's still durable enough it doesn't break. So that's kind of a handy tool, and it's light enough it doesn't deflect the joystick. So it's one you might put in your tool bag.
Thanks for sharing. That's excellent. Who else? Oh, come on. There's a hand. Be brave. You put all the silly stuff we put up there.
Just for the technicians, if you're concerned about any high amperage,
Can you use the mic? Thanks.
any high amperage accessory coming off the batteries, there's devices made where you can pull 12 volts equally off of both batteries instead of pulling them all off of one. So it will allow you to run quite a bit and still have chair operation.
Thank you.
Thanks. There's another one. Thanks for using the mic. I'm hard of hearing, so this helps.
I have a client who needed a mobile arm support, but there's no funding for it. And so what I did is I took the attaching hardware for the headrest, put it under the chair, linked together a few of the headrest, the arms, and then took a headrest that was like just a nice small cup and left the ball socket loose so she would have some
Excellent.
mobility
Like a little mobile arm support,
this
sort of.
way. It wasn't a true mobile arm support, but it gave her
Yeah.
some stability with some rotation and up and down
That's an
movement.
awesome idea. What else? There's one over there.
I've found magnets to be your friend. I have a customer in Florida Keys that I've mounted magnets along the side on both sides of his chair, and he literally carries as many tools with him on his chair as I do in my box. So magnets have been my friend with him.
I love it. Magnets are a great idea. I've used Velcro and other things for that sort of thing too, but this is definitely stronger. Well, let's keep sharing, but what we wanted to do is see if anybody had any ideas for what platform we could use to try to gather people together, because I think we all have a wealth of ideas, plus we all need to help each other. I'm the only OT in our clinic. I need help when sometimes, and there's nobody to turn to that knows occupational therapy and also does wheelchairs, and I would love to be able to get ideas from people. We were thinking a Facebook page that you could potentially ask questions. Anybody else have any other ideas? Say that? Oh, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. She's coming with the mic.
I think Jerry Wiseman has a website to post ideas.
Okay, maybe we can just tap into there. There's a lot of people know about it. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. Do you guys think do we think we need to have another? Do we need to do, because we do both peds and adults, so maybe having something Wiseman is more of peds, isn't it? Okay.
Hey guys. I work with Amber and Todd at the ALS clinic, and one thing I do want to make sure we're very clear on is when you pull power, you have to pull from both batteries, or you will damage the chair when you're charging. So just make sure you go ahead and get the 24 to 12 volt inverter. so that all of a sudden, 2 months later, you're having to replace the batteries. Because if you pull from one and those get off, we have issues.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, I actually have a little bit of a golf cart background from about 15 or 20 years ago. Golf carts are actually big power wheelchairs, same electronics, same battery hookup series. So you can get a 12-volt regulator to make sure you get 24 going in and a constant 12 out, because when you go to load, you're going to lose voltage. So if you don't have that regulator, you could very well short something out and burn up something. So.
Excellent. Any other comments or thoughts? All right. So we've got some references, as everybody needs on their PowerPoint. Here's our contact information. We are both available for if someone wants to share an idea. I would love it. I work all day long with ALS and muscular dystrophy, and so I need ideas for both of us. And if you've got questions, we both have a lot of experience, and we're happy to try to brainstorm with you and try to come up with some ideas as well. So thanks.